Peace, family. This is your brother, Mr. Holipsism. And what I'm going to do today is show you how a real scholar gets down. I'm going to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt the existence of Spider-Man. I'm going to accomplish this using irrefutable primary resources or primary sources, and good old-fashioned deductive reasoning. So let's get it in. According to the source Wikipedia.org, Spider-Man first appeared in the comic book Amazing Fantasy number 15. The cover was dated August 1962. The series was canceled with that issue, but response to the character was so positive that a solo title, The Amazing Spider-Man, was launched with a March 1963 cover date. Now, the author Stan Lee and the artist Steve Ditko, who provided the graphic illustration of Spider-Man, and the pair, as a pair, produced 38 issues from 1963 to 1966. Ditko left after the 38th issue, while Lee remained as a writer until issue 100. That would be considered sort of like the Old Testament of Spider-Man. Anything after that, they say, since then, many writers and artists have taken over the monthly comic through the years, chronicling the adventures of Marvel's most identifiable hero. And that's, would be considered New Testament Spider-Man. And my source for that, my primary source is Wikipedia.org. Now, what I'm going to show is that there's a comic graphic illustration of Spider-Man, and there's also an historical Spider-Man. And what I'm going to do is show how the historical and the comic come together. Now, Peter Parker was 16 years old and in high school in 1962. Now, just doing a brief people search utilizing Intellius.com, INTELIUS.com, you will see that we find a man named Peter T. Parker. Now, Peter T. Parker is 64 years old today. Now, if you take 64 years from 2011, this would mean that he was born in 1946. Now, how is that relevant? Well, brothers and sisters, if you add 16 years to his birth year of 1946, this would make him 16 years old in what year? That's right, 1962. And what makes that date relevant? Spider-Man first appeared in the comic book Amazing Fantasy number 15, cover dated when? August of 1962. This means that the historical Peter Parker was in high school in New York in 1962. The same year Spider-Man first appeared in the comic book Amazing Fantasy number 15. Now, either this is an amazing case of coincidence, or I have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Peter Parker existed in New York City as a 16-year-old high school student in 1962. Oh, but it does not stop there, brothers and sisters. Peter Parker also attended Midtown High School, otherwise known as Public School 108. My primary source for this information is Marvel.com. This means, this stuff is deeper than you even realize. Let's take a look at public school. Oh, keep in mind, Midtown High School was in Queens. I'm going to show you a picture of Public School 108 in Queens. There it is. That is irrefutable evidence that the historical Peter Parker went to school at Public School 108, and I was able to find Public School 108 in Queens. Now, how is that possible? Oh, but it doesn't end there, brothers and sisters. How about this? Peter Parker worked at the Daily Bugle. The Daily Bugle was built, according to my sources, marvel.wikia, wikia.com. The Daily Bugle was built in 1897. Now, why is that relevant? If you look at the design of the Daily Bugle, it looks strangely familiar to another design that we know of in New York City. And that design is the Daily News building. Now, here's where it gets deep. The Daily News building was built in 1929. So I ask you, brothers and sisters, look at the design of the Daily Bugle, which was built in 1897, and look at the Daily News building that was built in 1929. Are you going to sit there, see those two buildings, and tell me that they did not base the building of the Daily News on the Daily Bugle? I mean, what more proof do you need? And here's another thing. Let's look at the science behind the Daily Bugle, because it would be considered, what should they say, as a double entendre. The Daily Bugle. What is a bugle? Bugle is usually in the Army, armed services. When does a bugle go off? That's right, every morning. And what would every morning, something that occurs every morning, be considered? That's right, daily. This shit gets deeper than y'all even think. What else is there? I mean, I've used primary sources, I've made connections, I've used deductive reasoning. I think that by all the evidence that I've just presented, we can firmly conclude that Spider-Man is real. Spider-Man existed. We have the historical Spider-Man. It was a 16-year-old boy at the same time that the comic book was written by Stan Lee, and the artistic representation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man was done by Steve Ditko. So I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Mr. Holipsism, how are you going to use Marvel Comics as a source to prove Spider-Man? When really it's very simple. I believe in Marvel Comics. That's why. I'm a comic fan. So why would I not pick Marvel Comics to show the existence of Spider-Man? I don't need to go outside of that. I mean, Stan Lee, if this guy hadn't existed in 1962, what would Stan Lee have written about? I mean, he's obviously basing his story on this other man, this historical Peter Parker that was alive at the same time. And I dare anybody to refute that. So anyway, I just wanted to give you brothers an example of what real scholarship is. So if anybody wants to refute my claims, my information, please holler back with a video response. Peace.
First of all, we must internalize the flatulation of the matter by transmitting the effervescence of the Indonesian proximity in order to further segregate the crux of my venereal infection. Now, if I may retain my liquids here for one moment, I'd like to continue the redundance of my quote-unquote intestinal tract. See, because to preclude on the issue of world domination would only circumvent, circumcise the revelation that reflects the aphrodisiac symptoms which now perpetrates the Jericho's activation.